Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, grannies and gators, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is Wednesday, August 28th, and we are going to blow some brains today. We are going to shatter some realities. We are going to dispense a whole bunch of myths. And it's going to be it's going to it's going to be something that people have been eager to speak about, and very much too. So guys, if you're new here, stick around for a little while. Make sure you hit that like and thumb, and give us a subscription. Everything that you do see here today will be published in a doc format on Substack tomorrow, so that everybody, I hope, goes and arms themselves. So without further ado, a couple of fan favorites, Tiana Truthseeker and Mr. Doug Force, are joining us tonight. And why are we doing this tonight? And I told Tiana I was going to do this. I was going to put her on the spot right to start the show so that we could start it off with dynamite. She's been on you've been on our platform a bunch of times now, Tiana, and I caught a rant that you published on X a couple of days ago, and you were rocking. You were definitely upset. You were done with Canadian politics. You laid it all out. You said that was going to be your very last rant on Canadian politics because it was hopeless, and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm going, yeah, go girl, because most of us are caught up in this dynamic. And I knew that was not going to be your last political rant, so I had to prove that point and get you back on the show here tonight. And so this kind of sprung an idea. Doug's been on my platform before, and we did an in-depth series a couple of 3-4 years ago now on the greatest crime committed against Canadians in the history of our country. And the Overton window seems to have reopened, and you inspired me, Tiana. I've been seeing out there over some other people that have influence, that are realizing we cannot, not only are people saying we can't vote our way out of this, they're starting to look at solutions. Revolution is not one of them. Absolutely not. And so I'm seeing people like Jason Levine, Yukon Strong, even some other, well-known political pundits saying, it's time for something different. In the terms constitutional conventions come up, and I'm going, about time, Canada, about time, because that is the one true solution and silver bullet. And Doug is going to be here to fact check our ranting as we go on this, but it's one of those things, once you've had the red pill, you can't go back. So when I see this political charade, all of these people, in, like Celtic Canuck put it, we're all trapped in the car. The only thing these guys are campaigning and fighting over is who gets to drive, and we're locked in the damn trunk. And that's right. And and I keep coming back to a couple of things, and then I'll shut up. This is an exciting conversation for me, but there is a solution on the table. It's been on the table in Canada since 1931. Iceland, Barbados, and even the United States of America, once upon a time, all had the same thing in common. When the government corruption got too much, they held constitutional conventions by the people, of the people, for the people, and seated a new government. And that, I think, is where Canadians are starting to get to. It's time to clear the mud. It's time to clear the noise. And this is the conversations Canadians really, truly needs to be having. All of these people promising change, change, change. If they're not talking about constitutional conventions, they are a part of the bread and circus. They are not actually talking about real change. And to me, I've kind of made this my line in the sand, to challenge every single person seeking office. If you are not going to support constitutional conventions to seat a de jure Canada, yes or no? Really simple. Am I wrong on that, Doug?
Absolutely not. It's that simple. It really, and for 93 years, the world has been waiting for us to do just that.
And we got a
So
depression and a world war, kind of like they're doing right now. Wash, rinse, repeat. Because we're starting to talk about this, and it's time for to end the trough that the swine keep bellying up to. I think that this is Canada's time, and I'm inspired by how knowing that Barbados just really recently got rid of the monarchy, and they are going through the process. And everybody thinks that when you bring up this conversation that you're just another tinfoil hat wearer, you're an absolute clown, conspiracy theorist, far right. No, that isn't the case at all. And so, Tiana, this is where you have so much of a of the people's voice in identifying the crime sprees, and they are endless in every facet of our institutions have been corrupted, and you've done such a masterful job. uh where are you in this, so tell us why you were so triggered to write to for that particular rant given the date and time.
So I don't know how many times I've said I'm so done with all of this, because you get to such a level of frustration, because my entire thing is, okay, I'm going to show people how corrupt the entire system is. And back in 2021, I started off with the cabal and the vaccine and how everything trickled down, and I was slowly trying to wake people up, slowly, step by step, to show them that everything was a facade. And then you just reach certain levels where you just haven't have enough, and I just go off on my like absolute truthful rants where I don't care about people's feelings, or if I wake them up a little too fast, I just fast track the whole thing. And so I know I keep saying I'm done, but I don't think I'm ever done. So it's just a level of frustration that I reach at times, where people are like, oh no, the conservatives will fix everything, and you try and baby them into waking up, because it's almost like a person in a coma. When they first wake up, they have absolutely no idea where they were. They were just in a sleep state. And even the doctors sometimes have to put the coma patient back into sleep, because it's so violent when they wake up, and they have to have familiar faces. And so I've been slowly trying to wake people up, but sometimes even my patience runs thin. And so I just have this explosive, like, it's about to get verbal diarrhea. Like, everything will come all out there. Because it's not that I am dissing the Conservative Party. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's independent conservatives in there that have the actual, will to help Canadians, without even realizing that they have absolutely no powers, considering the shadows behind the scenes that are actually running everything. And then when you look at it, as we spoke before we came on here, we don't even have a constitution. We have a charter of rights that's not even real. It's just something in writing that we pretend we have, so that it's an illusion of something. So there's absolutely no politician, because they're all puppeteers that can change the course that we are headed down to. And unless we all wake up and realize what is actually happening, what the Constitution, or I shouldn't say Constitution, but what the actual rights are behind the Charter of Rights that's not even real, and who is actually running the show, we will never actually get a change in any sense of the way. And so I'm seeing these people who are just so hopelessly romantic about a certain political party, and that they will be helped in some kind of way. And I'm just thinking, we're wasting time here. We're like, time is running short, and we are not going to get any significant change. It's pretty much two wings of the same bird, and they will all take us down the exact same road, because they even do not have the options to make a U-turn on us, because they are completely owned by entities that most people do not realize are there. And so that's why I made the video, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just so done, blah, blah, but I'm never done. I think I just reach a level of frustration. I get so tired with all the research, all the ridiculous hate comments that I get, that I'm just like, couple of middle fingers in the air, and I let the frustration go. And then people are like, hey, I feel the same way. And then I'm like, oh, okay, good, me too. And so then we continue.
And that's really it. And I want to you brought up a great point, and then I want to kick it over to Doug, because this is a great segue for that. The people in this romantic delusion of hope, And this is, I was talking with Celtic Canuck about this a little bit, and there's that, and there's such a level of desperation and fear and uncertainty, and so much of that. If anybody's ever met a beaten wife, this is exactly how the majority of Canadians are responding, and at this point they will throw this. This is what has triggered me for the last week. So your rant set me off on that was that these people, most of us, we know, and when people are talking, they'll say, well, we know we can't vote our way out of this, but support this guy, vote for this guy, vote for him right now, anything to get Justin out, right? So there's that cognitive dissonance, such a disconnect from reality, and this is the predatory zone that all of these politicians, quote unquote, supposed elected representatives, and they sit there and they laugh at us. And this is where I want to bring Doug in for this, because we had a meeting with a high-ranking conservative member of who wanted our endorsement going into the last election. So we went there quite happily and said, okay, do you want to save Canada and the world? And he laughed. And he said, "No, I'm really just in for my pension." And when we mentioned, because Doug had the Myths Canada sticker on there, we asked him his opinion on Canada being de facto, and he shrugged his shoulders and laughed again and said, "Oh, we rule through implied consent." So that was literally what I heard. There was, you are bold-faced telling me that you are a part of a criminal mob syndicate, and so they're a little pissy at you right now, and you want our supports to put you in good standing with the crime syndicate again. Doug?
Are you going to tell him that? Are you going to mention the name of this politician?
Well, I want to keep it away from.
Or you're just going to leave it. Well, I wasn't
because
going to,
if I start,
wanted to.
If we start putting names to this, it opens it up for ad hominem, and this is not what I want to go out there. There's good people, there's bad people there, but at the end of the day, it's the one singular question. If you're not going to support seating in de jure Canada, you are not representing the best interests of the people at all. Full stop. And that's how they think. They laugh.
Well, what I've been teaching people is that since 1982 through 1985, all the provinces became subcorporations of the parent. Okay. And so now each province has to seat a de jure government. In order for us to seat a federal authority, we need to seat provincial authority first. Then and only then could we seat a federal authority and unite the country under a banner called Canada as a sovereign nation. And that's what we have to do at this stage of the game. I mean, if in 1931 we actually had done what we were supposed to do, which was elect delegates, send them into Ontario, for example, and write a constitution for a constitutional monarchy, ratify that constitution, we would not be in the position we're here today yet.
So let's start right at the beginning, because people bandy this word sovereignty around, and Canada is not a sovereign nation. We are classed as a constitutional monarchy, which nobody's ever seen a constitution, an actual constitution. And by the way, I'm just going to pull this up while I'm kind of ranting about this, because this is a resource library, and it's the only accurate one in Canada that has everything that people need to know. I'm going to just leave it there for the moment. But so what is de facto and what is de jure? And this is a critical distinction, because we talk about democracy. These meat muppets squeal democracy, and democracy is nothing more than the rule of the mob. And even in America, constitutional republic is different, which is the rule of law. So everybody's the same under the rule of law. But in a democracy, he who screams the loudest gets the power. And when your democracy is an unlawful de facto organization, nothing but a corporation that's hijacked the country, this is where people are lost in the terminology. And this has been the biggest theft against Canadians, that everything that has happened to us for 90 years was because of word salad.
Absolutely. I think Doug went MIA. Oh,
He'll be back. Doug is
Briefly.
custodian. Doug is the custodian of all things documenting the jurisdiction and the reality of what Canada is, and these are the things, that's why his site is called The Myth, the Story of Canada. And this is what made it so easy for Lord Farquaad to carry on the agenda of basically wealth extraction, slavery, and plunder. The no different than other others in history have done. So,
Okay, so you asked me for a couple of definitions. That's what I went and dug up. You wanted to know the difference between de facto and de jure. De facto.
Short and sweet. You don't go for days.
Latin, in fact, often used in place of actual, or to show that the court will treat as a fact authority being exercised, or an entity acting as if it had authority, even though the legal requirements have not been met. De facto. Also means existing but not in law. Okay? Now, de jure means of the law. The term has come to describe legal, lawful control of a state or a corporation. There you go. The Canadian government works under something called the de facto doctrine. Do you want to know what that is?
Implied consent.
Well, the de facto doctrine is a rule of principle of law which, in the first place, justifies the recognition of authority of governments established and maintained by persons who have usurped the sovereign authority of the people. Secondly, which recognizes the existence of and protects from collateral attack public or private bodies corporate, which through illegally organized yet under color of law openly exercise the power and function of regularly created bodies. De facto doctrine. That's what we have here in Canada.
So they make up the rules as they go, and they hold themselves accountable. And until we in mass stand up and say, no, we want a different form of government, this will absolutely continue. And all they are doing is fighting over who gets to drive the bus over the cliff while we're locked up in the trunk. Can I put it any more simply?
In a nutshell.
Well, and this is the thing, because the reason why this is such a crime against Canadians and why this is so critically important now, and this is, again, me not telling anybody what to do, but there are certain people in this country that have known this for a very long time. This is what Trudeau called the Quebec problem, that he infamously got caught on having a Freudian slip and got busted for it. But this is the extortion that's been going on through what's been the leverage that's been going on with the piracy and the implementation of all things insane in Canada. And there's some people that are organizing in some places in this country, and this is the important part, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but as you stated, any province, it starts with a province. It's my understanding that if any province moves to seat a de jure government in their province or territory, every single other province and territory in this landmass known as Canada, the first First Nation state, would then be where? What happens then? Do they
Well, let's take where here in Ontario, for example, was to seat a de jure government with law of the land. That would then cause a dominoes effect with all the other provinces being forced to now seat governments with law of the land, because the law of the sea government that they have would collapse with law of the land brought back. And that's all it would take. It would be a domino effect. And then this is why I go across Canada teaching this, not just in one province and teaching the one province. I want all provinces to become aware of what can happen when one seats. Then there are people that will be in those provinces that I've taught through my seminars that are able to pick up where chaos ensues. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh, well, here we have. This is what we need to do, and move into that constitutional committee, making electing your delegates, creating a constitutional convention where you send your delegates and they write your constitution where the people ratify it after. And like you said in the beginning, Iceland did it in 30 days. So hey, why can't we do it?
Right, and this is where I want to put out a bit of a disclaimer, because right now pretty much every straw man, every free man of the land is out there going, ah! And every political candidate and supporter and stumper is going, oh my God. But this is exactly how they've gotten us to this position where people are so desperate and despondent that they're literally choosing self-deletion, because that's the only option government is giving them, while they are pillaging and stealing from what should be the most wealthy population in the country, and invading us literally with a hostile foreign ideology. The only way out at this point, as I see it, is we get educated with the deal that's been, the check that the Queen actually wrote for us and has been sitting there collecting dust for 90 years because the certain people wouldn't let us access it or wouldn't teach us about it, and kept us in this state of for things were good for a while in our history, but at this point here now, the people are getting incredibly frustrated, and that, I think, breeds something dangerous. And if we don't come together with something that is real as a plan and an understanding, and educate people with what they need to know right now, this is the enemy at the gates time. The Trojan horse is already in, and we need to bring it together to protect ourselves, because these people that have, as Klaus so famously said, as we know, more than half of the cabinet has been penetrated. And these are the people that, this is what another thing that triggers me is they're the whole damn country obsessed with the 11 compromised from China and India, maybe. Well, what about the other 237 of them that have been damn well compromised by the Geneva and Davos demons that, inflict policy dreamt off in foreign lands by unelected entities, and they only want to talk about foreign interference from Japan or from China? Like, get bent, get real. Not all of us are that damn stupid. And so this is why, throwing this together here now, trying to catch lightning in a bottle on people's frustrations with something that is real, something that they can refer to, a library, a playbook, a handbook. It's all there. Am I batshit crazy?
No, I don't think you are, but I think I think a lot of people are still holding on to this myth that what is Canada. And so they believe that politicians actually have some sort of power, that they're not just puppeteers, for their shadow masters, wanting their own paycheck. They do not care about us individually as Canadians or Canada in general. They would sell us out in a heartbeat because they know that we're a myth. We've been sold a lie that we were a country and that we would come together and all of that stuff. And so people are still stuck on that notion. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome. And so unless people realize that if we do not balkanize in a sense of the way of, we go our separate ways so that we can have a separate government, then maybe down the line we can eventually become not just a myth, but the actual Canada. And so what people also don't understand is that every single mayor, including the one in Calgary right now, and so many of them are being brainwashed by an actual other group that is an NGO or almost an arm of the WEF. And so almost on every single level, politicians are being groomed to take away as much as they can of this Canada that people think is there. And so they think that if they fight one over the other, that, you know, they will save Canada eventually at the end of the day. But the entire thing is a myth. And slowly I've been trying to kind of wake people up in that sense of the way. But I think it's just time to pull back the curtain completely, and who survives and who goes back to sleep and, you know, goes a little Mad Hatter, because the truth is out. You know, eventually they'll come around after the madness dust settles, I think.
Well, to me, this gathering that we're having here right now, and this discussion is I guess my attempt at pulling off the Band-Aid to get to the point of it. We've got so much division, so many wedge issues. We can find a bazillion things to argue about. Well, let's fact check the arguments and start the arguments from the beginning with facts and information. There is a whole industry out there, a freedom industrial complex that has muddied the well. A lot of that I actually believe is through intentional intervention to keep the well muddied. And there's a lot of people out there that promise this, like, a petition, just sign a petition, send us your money and we'll put you on a list and you're done. No, that is not how this works. There's a recognized procedure and process. And anybody that's taking shortcuts to any of that is just another parasite feeding off of the same carcass of the Canadian taxpayer at this point. And we need to set the record straight on so much of that. So if we're going to fight, let's fight about something that's real, something that's not made up, something that's, has value when we come to understanding each other.
Absolutely. I honestly agree.
You know, I as I've been back and forth now 9 times across Canada, doing these little seminars and so on and so forth, and then every once in a while I'll come across, well, it's becoming more commonplace. I shouldn't say every once in a while, where I will run into somebody who says, "Well, what court can you take it into? Where can we take this into a court?" And I say, "Well, there really isn't in a de facto governance. All the courts are illegal and unlawful. How would you take them into the courts?" Well, because we could hire good attorneys to do this, and I'm thinking, good grief, ladies and gentlemen, please understand that the number one problem we have here in Canada isn't so much the politicians or the government itself, but it's the attorneys. Every single part of government, let it be a ministry or a municipality or a city, they all have a legal department, and everything they do goes through legal before it comes into the public realm. So who is illegal? Well, that would be the attorneys. And what are they? They're bar carded. And who do they belong to? A law society. What is the law society? Well, it's called a PMA non-statutory. In other words, it lives outside all the statutes and color of law that they create to keep the slaves on the plantation, you and I, the taxpayer. So in order for us to make the proper change, we need to, when we write our Constitution, would ban law societies, would ban bar-carded attorneys, would ban courts of color of law. And then we have freedom. But we've got to start there. There's an old joke when I grew up in Vancouver. Please don't hold that against me. But we used to say, what do you call 500 lawyers at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? Well, that was a good start.
Well, this, when you gets to it, it was actually a lawyer that said to me, you know why most politicians are lawyers, because they fail and suck at being lawyers, so they end up in politics because they're going to get a sure thing pension for doing that. And I think it was you and I that were talking the other day, about these people that have foisted these crime sprees against us. People like what was the last guy in Alberta, Harper, all Jason Kenney, all of these guys, they're all bloody lawyers, every last one of them, and again, I don't I don't begrudge the humans, and this is why I don't want to make this about the persons behind it. Yeah, they're all human, but at the end of the day, it's what they ascribe to and their actions that we need to focus on, and their inaction. And this is where I keep coming back to that same question to start every conversation with a politician: are you going to support holding constitutional conventions to seat to de jure Canada? And they'll tell you, because they know exactly what that means if they say yes. So they will absolutely say no. So they may think that they have the best of intentions, but playing in the devil's arena by the devil's rules is never going to beat the devil.
That is very true.
What's that old expression? I used to use it all the time. You can't vote your way out of tyranny. It's politics isn't going to save us here in Canada. We have a tyrannical government. We know that through the de facto doctrine that they rule over. And by the way, this debt that they've created, I'm going to segue into that one for you, Wayne, because you love this word, and I've seen you love this word. This is one of Wayne's favorite words. It's called odious debt. That debt belongs to the tyrant. We seek de jure the debt that Mr. Trudeau has created. The $1.7 trillion actually belongs to him and his cabinet, and they get to pay it. Well, the Canadian taxpayers, that doesn't belong to them. That's their debt. So we start debt-free, as we should, because the reality is Canada is so wealthy. Each province has more resources than pretty much any other place on the planet, other than maybe Russia or Venezuela has a little bit more oil than we do. But everybody else, including the United States, has had resource wealth, but it's been so mismanaged down there that a lot of it can no longer be accessed. Where here in Canada, it's been mismanaged here, but by not allowing access to it, but it's the people's wealth. And that's the beautiful thing of this. We, the people, in 1930, all of the resources that were held by the Dominion of Canada government back in 1930 were returned to the provinces to manage on behalf of we the people. So you look at the Western provinces, for example, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia, and the oil wealth there is worth trillions, and it belongs to we the people. And I call these de facto governments today the mismanagement companies that mismanage our wealth in favor of themselves and their cronies. And now we need to take that back. That and join the multipolar world, and it will be wonderful. Believe me. We'll have to deal with the hegemony of the United States as rules for you, but not for us. Anyway, sorry, my rant.
You're right. That odious debt, that stinky, that's what it reminds me of, stinky debt. And we were talking about that on a show a couple of nights ago, where this meat muppet, these meat muppets, all of them are printing debt, printing money, agreeing to debt. So somebody's got your bank account, is taking out $1 trillion loans and promising that we the people are going to work ourselves to death and to pay back the crime spree, while him and all of his cronies are getting rich off of all of this. And a point that you had made earlier, Tiana, that I think is critically important when you brought up the mayors. And somebody out there, Google how many city mayors we have in Canada, because there is more than 9,000 of them that have sworn an oath above and beyond to supersede their elected duties in office to fulfill strong mayor coven responsibilities and duties in Canada. So that's 9,000 mayors that have been captured by a different syndicate, more foreign influence and treason. So literally, we have got what remedy do we think that we're going to get when these guys are all committed to each other's crime syndicates.
Exactly. And the one thing that I've been researching behind the scenes, where I haven't made a video yet because everybody is complaining about the Calgary water being shut off on purpose. What people don't understand is that the mayor in 2009, and I believe he was a liberal, not believe, I know he was a liberal, I just can't remember his name. I have the Dave Bronconier or Bronconier. I don't know, Dave. He was the mayor of Calgary who signed Calgary on in 2009 to an accord called the Calgary Climate Accord that wasn't written until 2018, which was signed on by Mayor Godek. And what people also don't understand, that in 2021, she declared a climate emergency only in Calgary. And they are allowed to take your resources away by law and by taxes, which is what it states in this accord, so that they can reduce the CO2 emissions within Calgary. And there's a couple of cities that are now on this group. Let me just find what it's called. And Houston is one of them. They're major energy cities around the world that have pretty much signed on their citizens for all of this. And there is so much of this stuff happening within mayors. As we can see in BC, they're passing laws and bills pretty much saying that they can come into your home and take it away in case they do call an emergency, that they can pretty much force vaccinate you. So if we do not do something on a larger scale,
right,
such as what Doug is speaking, we will completely lose every single right, because they're just going to write it into law. So those of you wondering in Calgary, you know, especially with the Convent of Mayors, which is the secret society of group of mayors where they get brainwashed into all of this elite stuff. So,
well, can I just read you a quick headline? I just thought this was hilarious. I got this off. I have a Yahoo Mail account, so this is when you close out the account, this comes up. It says the ocean is overflowing. UN chief issues global SOS as new reports warn Pacific sea level rise outstrips global average. And I'm like, oh my God, they've discovered tides. And it's man-made.
Somebody
no, the tide came in.
Somebody go and run out and
hilarious.
Check on Plymouth Rock and see if you need a scuba set to check out, see if it's still there, how deep underwater it is. Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. We've been covering so much of it, you know, where they're and it's interesting because it's actually the government of Canada, the Canadian government, that has been lobbying the WHO to include climate change as a pandemic criteria to implement lockdowns. That's Canada leading the charge on that, and so we're into the good, the juicy stuff here now. Go ahead, Doug.
And I don't want to belabor this, but I call them climate grifters because the truth of the matter is, and they know the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is, for these grifters, is this: global warming is caused by the sun. The byproduct of global warming is carbon dioxide. It's a byproduct. It doesn't cause it. So as most communists do, they reverse. I call it Harry Potter science. But why would they choose carbon dioxide of all the gases that they could call? It's not poisonous gas. It's an exhalant that human beings do. And John Kerry let it slip 2 years ago in an interview. The carbon that we are trying to reduce is the human population.
yes.
Not carbon dioxide. It's you, me, and the person beside you and across from you, et cetera, et cetera. These people need to be dragged out from wherever they are by their heels, dragged into the middle of the street, put in the back of a van, taken to a court.
Easy. We don't want
tried for crimes against humanity, and that's as far as I'll go.
Thank you, because that could really easy go sideways. Because this is you know, people are starting to realize we are
all
staring
about
oblivion
rule of law.
We're staring oblivion.
I'm all about the rule of law.
And as Tayana mentioned, you know, if we don't do something on a bigger scale, and if we don't do this damn Skippy, I just had Michael Yon on a couple of days ago, and one of the things that he says is, you know, we need to get the right words. That is the atomic bombs of the battle that we are fighting right now, is our words and articulation. And these climate people, they are terrorists. They are literally eco-terrorists. And Stephen Jobot is among the greatest in Canadian history of that, next to, drumroll please, Maurice Strong. Doug?
Well, the good part of Maurice Strong is he dropped dead a couple of years ago.
But he's the godfather of it all.
Oh, 1992. That was the Rio conference in Rio. That's where it got it all started. He decided that because during the 70s it was global cooling, during the 80s it was kind of cooling, kind of warming, kind of cooling, kind of warming, and he was the one that went, okay, it's global warming and it's caused by carbon dioxide. That's how we're gonna grift these people going forward, and that's exactly what happened.
And what did they need? They needed money and a new alphabet agency to implement all of this. And the United Nations and all of these, what was it? The Bilderberg Group was launched the same time as the United Nations to facilitate this and to create the bridge for the public-private partnership. So I see people out there all the time. Well, it's communism, it's fascism. No, this is a chimera. They have merged and married fascism and communism, the best parts of it that they think that they need to conquer us. And that's basically where we're at here right now. And it's kind of like the Alamo, or it should be feeling a little bit like the Alamo. And this is a message for any of our American friends that are out there. You guys do not understand how you guys talk in the States about the swamp and the deep state down there. Well, those meat muppets that are the swamp and the deep state and the oligarchs that are destroying America have been using Canada as cottage country to do all of that in. And our meat muppets up here, the Trudeaus and the Jobots, have been quite happy to be the useful idiots to provide the cover for this kind of deep-seated evil. And right now these guys are setting up an ambush right next door to our friends in America that really, really mortifies me. And that was why I brought on Michael Leon the other day, to ask him if he thought I was crazy in thinking that these totalitarian meat muppets this has been a manufactured destabilization, and the only way that they can plan to conquer America is to do the same thing there at a bigger scale and create an invasion through Canada. And it's not just the southern border that you have to worry about. The northern border, they're just not crossing it yet. They are busy getting fed and fat and organized and armed and pissing all over the Canadian culture and dominating our streets. And this is going to become a problem for America if some people in America don't start having our six a little bit. Because I know, Tiana, you and I, we do a lot of exposing this and reaching to our American friends, trying to help them out and explaining all of this. And we don't see a lot of response from the talking heads in America understanding. I understand they're concerned with their own country, but they're going to get blindsided.
Oh, I definitely keep warning Americans about Canada and what is happening in Canada so that they do not mirror what is happening with us. But because to them we are so insignificant, they just think that, oh, you're just a bunch of old friendly Canadians up north, eating syrup and riding moose. And what are you guys going to do? And it's like, no, Canada's honestly becoming a threat to the United States because of the outside influence, not just from China, but from all of these global, like the World Economic Forum, convent of lawyers. And as you can see, they're trying to get certain liberal leaning or more communist leaning mayors and governors in with their plans, such as with the climate accord that Calgary supposedly came up with, that signed on Houston. And so I am trying to warn Americans, hey, you do realize Canada is a threat, not necessarily the Canadian people, because the Canadian people are being held hostage in their own country right now. But the external entities that have a hold on Canada is absolutely insane. And if the Americans don't realize that China's doing the exact same thing, They're paying off their politicians. They're buying up their lands. You know what I mean? They have their youth on TikTok completely brainwashed. You've got Hollywood brainwashing them on a completely other separate level. And if they do not watch the way Canada is going, unfortunately, the US will go this way as well. The only thing that's helping the US out is they're about 20 years behind and they have pew-pews. And they're willing to use these pew-pews. I've heard some people say that they've got tanks, like personal tanks out in West Virginia, just riding around. And to be honest, God bless America for that, because that is the only thing that I think that will, like, at the end of the day, be between them and the globalists if they come in for a takeover. But with Canada, what they're doing is they're playing a very elegant psychological game. And if we react even remotely a little bit, they have the power to come in and make it a complete police and military state. So it's very careful that how we feel, we do not express that anger out in public, because then we will be labeled as a danger. So it would be best that whoever understands what is going on, we have the people who understand the law and the Constitution fight that battle on that end in a very calm and, educated manner. And then we have other people going after, the local politicians and so forth, especially if they're very community orientated. But everything that we can do together is basically ignore and not go along with the agenda. And do not be afraid. And I mean, do not be afraid is stated in many different ways in the Bible, and not to get religious, but we should not be afraid of what we will lose. I'm sorry, I've got like 3 dogs. We adopted another one. I said I wouldn't adopt another dog, but here I am.
No worries. It was an interesting point that Dr. Stephen Turley brought up the other day when the UK faced this problem once before. It was actually a Christian revival that ended up saving the English culture once before. And this is what concerns me is seeing literally the Crusades coming to our back doorstep, and we have been beaten we're all running around like the dogs that are scared of newspapers. The instant they say you're racist or you're Islamophobe, we go, oh no, we're not politically correct. And politically correct is nothing more than the implementation of fascism. And here we are, where Canadians are going to have to decide very, very base level: do you want women's rights or Islam? Because you can't have both. Let's just make it that damn simple, because it literally is that. And we have gotten to a point here now where they show absolutely no respect for our law, our culture. They are calling for jihad right now on our streets and using bullhorns to do it. Where if you're an old stock white Christian Canadian, they'll bring out the horses and trample you. So we're running out of time for this political charade and this hope, this false sense of hope and tipping at windmills and new parties and none of it is going to fix a damn thing anymore at this point. So again, this is not to be derogatory to anybody else out there. This is like the Hail Mary time for Canada, in understanding if we don't fix it ourselves, it's over, and it's going to be over sooner than we can possibly imagine. So,
My apologies. My dogs are going wild.
No worries.
Okay. Here's the other thing that why I keep getting asked this question, and they said, so Doug, what are they really after? Why are they doing this to us? What's happening to us? And I said, well, what happened here in North America, we're going to go back in history a little bit. In the United States, we'll go 1862, and in Canada, 1872. They gave the land to the people in allodium through what we call crown patents in Canada or land patents in the United States. And so if you're in the United States, all land in the United States is in land patents, every single square inch. And here in Canada, about about 2/3 of all of Canada is under Crown patent. What's interesting is that in 1931, in December of 1931, the court and chancery that held all the land in allodium on behalf of the British Empire returned it onto the provinces and then onto the people. So they want the land. They want it back.
Yep.
They are very upset. Why? Because all the resources under the ground they believe belongs to them. So welcome to World War III, ladies and gentlemen. They are not going to buy it from you. They're going to take it through killing you and then putting claim on it because there's nobody there to claim otherwise. Look at Israel and how they're taking away Palestine from the Palestinian people that have been there for 3,000 years. They're killing them all off, and there's nobody to complain. It's called conquest.
Well,
conquest. I remember
when
that
they
word. There you
when
go.
they made those deals, they didn't think of Canada as being anything more than a few twigs, some savages, and maybe some beaver pelts. That was really the only interest that they had in Canada at the time when that was done. And yeah, and now they want it all back. In this weaponization of migration. Is the civilized, was it the Club of Rome guy who said that benevolent dictators would be able to happily and fairly cull the population back to a manageable 500 million. Again, another Canadian invention. So many of these freak shows that are trying to take over the world are, Canadian made. Go Canada. And so it's really no wonder that the rest of the world has nothing but contempt for the system in Canada. And Canadians themselves have been led down the garden path for 90 years. And we are busy, holding doors open for each other and saying sorry because we did, to each other. So this is really, it truly has to stop. And I want to, and this is, again, this is about facts, and it doesn't really. I'm done with feelings. And I saw a comment in there about not all Muslims are the same, and I have a chilling story to refer to that. And I don't care about race. Islam is an ideology, and nobody can convince me that there is such a thing as a moderate Islam believer or an extreme or a radical. Because it was literally one of them that asked me one time if I knew the difference, and I didn't. And he says, a moderate doesn't want to take your head. He will wait for the radical to do it. And until then, they will smile and work with us and call us kafirs and whatever it is that they call us. And they will grow and build and they will conquest. And this isn't something they've done before. And, in 1,400 years of that ideology, they've got a body count, somewhere in the neighborhood of 680 million. So these are some things that we have to have these bloody hard discussions. And we have to have them right now because literally we are facing the edge of extinction through biowarfare from these unelected monsters and their policies to the invasion. This is when Rich Higgins was on my show just before he died, talking about unrestricted warfare. Folks, you're living it right here, right now. Unrestricted warfare against not just Canada, but we only have a solution on the table for Canada. Everybody else, and this is where all of our countries, like you said before, Tayana, we need to get our own damn ducks in a row, our own houses in order, and we need to get a little bit more secular before we are exterminated. Ireland's going through it, UK is going through it, France, all of Europe. We have a glimmer of hope. But to me, it only lives in this term called constitutional conventions that we need a mass education on for the entire population.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, you guys were talking about the wars and who's at fault and all of this stuff. Canada was a promised land for new land. without being told by the colonizers that it would be stolen land, right? And so then a war ensued. And what they do is they promise the people coming in to build up that land, to civilize it. And now what is happening through UNDRIP is they're taking that land back by saying that they will actually return it to the Aborigine community, which they're not. In the UNDRIP, in all of their, I guess, whatever they've signed, whatever piece of paper that they've signed, it's basically saying that it's going to go back to the original Aborigine in the name of King Charles. So that's the loop that continuously happens. And right now, the reason why they're flooding illegals into Canada and Europe is to create more chaos. And they are purposely bringing in fundamentalists. They're not bringing in normal people from around the world. They're bringing in fundamentalists and people who have been let out of prisons so that we only see those people because they have been put here on purposely to distract us even further so that we have infighting, so that we can't really see their bigger plan, which is the fact that they are going to now take all the land that they have colonized and all of the people that they no longer need because they built up the society to what they want. They will cull half the population, take back the land through reparation, through all of these virtue signaling things that none of the things that they care about, which is what the UN is as well. And then they will also focus on all of us hating a certain group of people so that when that pendulum swings back, it's the conservatives that will actually seem like bad people. And I've seen this play out in many times. So now we're seeing the demonic side of the liberals in very open, and they seem like the bad guy, which will make that pendulum swing much harder to the right. And we always know people's emotions get taken over, and that is when they will actually make the conservative side actually seem like the true evil ones, which is what they've done many times in history, which is why I always try and tell people that they need to be balanced out and really see what it is for and all of the distractions that they have setting towards us so that we hate each other and fight each other. And I guess I just wanted to say that because I always go on podcasts where one side gets blamed for everything and this, and there's a very anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli like sentiment. But there's a plan for that. And that plan usually involves a prophecy coming true. And it is not going to make any of us win unless we really truly know the truth that we're all being used up as pawns from the beginning of making of North America all the way up till now. And I guess I just wanted to say that piece.
There's a really good, I don't know whether you've read this book, but there's a really good book that everybody in this audience should read and get it out there. It's on a PDF. You can Google it and it'll get you a PDF for a download. It's a short book. It's about 110 pages long. It's called, damn, let's try that again. It's called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Now, that is the blueprint for cultural Marxism, which was what you have now as politically correct and woke liberal side. And if you read the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which the Jewish community calls a forgery. I had an argument with a gentleman once before on that, and I said, "Really? So where's where's the original? Where's the original? If it's a forgery."
Anyway. We're getting into the weeds, and we're going to open up the door for people to debunk what we're talking about. And at the end of the day, we need to keep this to what is a solution, because we could go, exactly as Jana said, we could go to pointing fingers till the cows come home. There is only one damn solution. And that is
that's
what
all of us coming together. It's always been us versus them, not us versus each other. And if you want to just, with the elders of Zion or whatever, if you just want to look at how it was found, it's the exact same CIA psyops that was used in World War II to trap Germans into thinking that the Americans did something when they didn't. So that's what I wanted to say is if we're all pointing fingers at one over the other, that pendulum eventually will make this side look bad. So we need to focus on us, all of us as human beings versus these parasitic elites. In no sense of the way do we differentiate as one group over the other.
The only reason I brought that up was to give you guys in the audience a starting point where the division starts and has built out from there till where we are here today. And so, yeah, you could say it's whatever you want to say it is, but the reality is it is real. It was in the 1890s where it was put together over a period of about 20 years. But that's okay. Anyways, I just wanted a starting point for people to look at, and now you can say, aha, there we go. We need to put all that crap aside and stop it and start embracing each other for who we are as human beings, and start working together as liberal, conservative, communist, non-communist, fascist, non-fascist, etc., etc. Get rid of all of these labels and start looking at the human race for what it is, the human race. Not color, not language, but everybody is equal in the eyes of the Creator, period. And we need to start walking that forward as a group against the others that want to divide us. And we've got to stop that. And that's all I wanted to, that's the point I was trying to make there. Where did it all come from? That's where what we have to do is recognize that and then stop it.
There's this process that we've seen of attempted world conquest has gone on for eons. If I'm going to throw my little pointing the finger at it, because that's where my cultural or origin is as well, is that whether it was the Romans or the Nazis or the Gauls, all of the conquerors have come from damn Germany. All of them. And if we look at what we have now, our entire academia has been infiltrated by Frankfurt. Where's that, guys? Germany. So the Germans are striking again, and we're staring down the barrel of the what I call the WEF Fourth Reich, this chimera of all of these insane ideologies. And that's the evil genius that they've been able to foister on us, is through word salad gobbledygook, programming and propaganda, to get us in this place where we are literally begging the country to kill us through MAID programs to escape the suffering, because these guys can only rule through suffering. And we have a blank check. Canadians have a blank check. And this is the thing that I want to focus on is, how do we screw this system? We can fight about this, that, or the other thing till the cows come home, but the only thing that actually stops them is constitutional conventions and entering into that process. Doug?
Yeah, I just had to, I'm sorry, I mute my microphone every time I stop talking. So, and I'm getting eye surgery. I'm getting my cataracts fixed next week. I go in for eye surgery. So my computer screen, I'm very blurry and I can't see the little pointer as it takes me a second. Sorry about that. That's,
no,
but I agree with you. The Frankfurt School is where cultural Marxism started back in the 1930s, and the divide happened between the communists that wanted to go with the proletariat and uprising, and then the cultural Marxist says, no, we're gonna go into society and start breaking it down and causing separation and division. Saul Alinsky was back in the 1960s and 70s was a great proponent of that, and he wrote a wonderful book called Rules for Radicals that Hillary Clinton wrote her dissertation paper on in order to get her law degree when she graduated from university. And so there's a lot of stuff out there that people become aware. You have to become aware of your enemies in order to defeat them. What was it that Sun Tzu said? Know your enemy as you would know yourself. Those that don't know their enemy will lose battles. Those that, et cetera, and we really, truly are at war with a very small, very tight, elite group of people on this planet. There are probably no more than, I would say, at the most, 30 to 40,000 of them, period. And that's it. We are 6, 7, 8 billion people now. I think we're at 8 billion. What was that guy who in England who did the 99% song? I love that. We used to exit my Myth is Canada roundtables with that song. We, the people, have the power. We, the people, just need to stop arguing amongst we, the people, and start pulling together in the same direction to make the change that we, the people, know is necessary to get done.
I think it's through a societal manipulation where permanent victimhood is the societal norm, where everybody's so busy feeling sorry for themselves and fighting for that, rather than understanding the bigger picture. So it becomes a sense of urgency in the now, and that leads again back to that hope, desperation, and despair, and vote for this guy, and that's just the doom loop, wash, rinse, repeat. The only thing that changes is an advancement of the technology, and it was harder for them when we voted the old fashioned way. Now it's gotten easy, where I don't know if you guys heard about the hackers test on the voting software, where they said not only was fraud a possibility, but it was a built-in feature. Right. So with all of these people looking to do things, it's just made it an impossible stew to navigate. So I know Tiana's got to go here pretty quick, Doug. So just so that her viewers get a little bit of a real quick 30-second take us to the process. I'm out here talking, asking politicians, will you support constitutional conventions to see to de jure Canada? What happens if they say yes?
Well, then you really want to know, what's really going on here with the politician? Why would a politician say yes to doing something that is counterintuitive to what their power structure? So I would think that a non-politician who takes on the office, gets in there. Let's call it Danielle Smith, for example. She came up through not politics. A very lovely lady, very intelligent lady. She was a reporter like yourself. She worked many years in the reporting business, but she was never a politician. I'm sure she ran into a few over the years.
Oh, she was she was a Wild Rose member before, so she had a couple of stints in politics,
but not a real politician. What I'm talking about, she was not a Stephen Harper. She's not a what's his name? Derek Sloan. She's not a Dougie Ford, et cetera, et cetera. These people are politicians, dyed in the wool, come up. So but with her, she could prorogue Parliament and call for a constitutional convention and seat and ask the communities across Alberta to send delegates to the convention center to write a constitution. And that's what a non-politician could do. As the premier of the province of Alberta, she could actually prorogue Parliament, which is to end Parliament, as you know, and call for a constitutional convention for a de jure government. And that's how it would be done, through a politician, but non-politician, so to speak.
Right. So it's about the character of the person to do that, and at that point, it's not even an election. At that point, it's a certain percentage of the population has to endorse that. So this is why this is important. I wanted Tiana's audience to get it. I love the boxer. They are so needy, but whether Alberta does it or not is irrelevant at this point. Go ahead, play your political reindeer games, but there is a group moving in Quebec to do that very, very thing. And this is where this other wedge issue of this language barrier that these guys have used to divide us is now going to ultimately blindside us, because people in the rest of the country are going to be going, oh, another referendum for separation? No, it's not separation. It is determining yourself as a nation and your future. It is taking control. And if Quebec's going to do it, everybody else in the rest of the country is going to completely get screwed over if we don't have a clue what the hell is coming or what the hell to do or how to fix it. So this is not an easy button, but it's the only damn button.
Hell, I wrote a book on how to do it. You can get it for free on the website. Download it for free. It's called Constitutional Committees. And by the way, the book is 25 pages, and it explains how to hold a constitutional convention, how to elect your delegates, and how to write a constitution, all in 25 pages. Wow.
Well,
wow.
You know, so
I should charge like $500 for the book.
People can spend months and months studying policy and not make a change. They can spend months and months and months, looking in lawfare or fighting in the courts and not make a change. In a few short months, if enough Canadians got plugged in to the actual reality, we could actually make real change and significant change. And, we don't have to have a revolution to do that like America did. It was, they did it for 3% tea tax. They had a revolution and decided no more monarchy. They're going to be a constitutional republic. Well, I think if Barbados can even do it, what the fuck, Canada? Like, really? Really? And this is where my frustration comes in, Tana.
Oh, sorry. I had it muted because my dogs are all over me. I've got one boxer, I've got the Rottweiler, and then I've got the little fella at my feet. So no, I definitely think I will read some through your steps and what you have written, and then put it down in layman's terms and make some videos of what we can do individually and together in each province to actually start a constitution, because we definitely need that. That is the only thing keeping Americans safe, I believe, for now. I mean, it's not completely, pew-pew proof, the Constitution here, but it is definitely a good protection that they have. And that's something that we need in Canada, because we definitely need to get rid of the monarchy. That is our number one enemy in the sense of the way, because if you really look at it, King Charles is in with the WEF and the Club of Rome and the Committee of 300 and everybody who delegates down the pyramid in the line of powers knows exactly what is happening, and it seems to go through the monarchy and the royal family in Canada.
Well, here's something that you might find interesting. First of all, King Chucky, he's on his deathbed, and he's probably not going to be with us by Christmas, at least according to medical reports. He's got some cancer. I guess he took the jab, got turbo cancer, and now he's on his way out. Fingers crossed. He always said he would like to die and come back as a virus. And viruses don't exist. So there you go. He will come back as nothing. But here's the funny thing. There's a little document that was created in 1952 called the Royal Styles and Titles Act. And the Royal Styles and Titles Act was created by Queen Elizabeth by making declaration to the Canadian Parliament to write this Royal Styles and Titles Act. What is the Royal Styles and Titles Act? Ladies and gentlemen, you can download it from the Myth is Canada. It's on the website under the timeline 1952, and read it yourself. I'm going to paraphrase. It's one paragraph. Says, I, the Queen of England, declare myself the Queen in right of Canada. How wonderful. One paragraph. No heirs, no successors. None. Oh, gee whiz, King Chucky. How did you become the king in right of Canada if there were no heirs and successors to the Royal Styles and Titles Act, and the Canadian Parliament hasn't created a new Royal Styles and Titles Act? In other words, you do not exist here in Canada. You have no claim whatsoever, period. Now piss off.
All right, Tana, final statement. You're going to check some of this out. Can we get you back once your head's done exploding? Because I think we're just starting a grass fire here with this tonight, and I think that this has been highly educational for folks, and I know that we're going to get a lot more, and we're going to get some heat that's going to go with this too, because it's always the hardest thing to do, to shatter people's realities, and none of us want to be right. We have gone through all of those processes, and it's not like I have. I'm not going to say it. I do have a particular level of animosity towards some politicians, but yeah, at the end of the day, that's not really what I don't really give two shits about them. Karma will get them. They're going to have to pay the prices for their actions. But at the end of the day, this is about getting people educated so they can make better damn decisions. Because right now, nobody's making good decisions, and it's just it's sucks the life out of and it must do to you too. These people, that are so desperate and so desperate, and they're lemming politics is lemming behavior at this point. So
Oh, absolutely. Well, one thing we all agree on is that politicians aren't going to fix any of our issues. But I think the one thing that Doug can do, like right now when I get off this thing, is in a linear form, almost in layman terms, explain to Canadians how step by step they can do this within their own provinces and what certain things mean in layman terms. Because I'm seeing the comments of, can we get the solutions? Can we get the solutions? People aren't truly understanding what we mean by Canada is a myth. And also that we do not have a constitution. So if things can be broken down much simpler, because you guys have 45 minutes left before I leave. And then I will watch some of this back and I will make videos while I go through the website just to kind of understand, because everything's kind of going all in different ways. And most of it does sound like, conspiracy theory, especially if you haven't studied the subject in any sort of depth or in any sort of, I guess, light, and also believing in the entire matrix, I guess, of what is Canada and the system and believing in it. So if you could kind of explain to people who actually want a solution of what can be done, are you talking about, provinces separating? Are you talking about just people going in and, electing an entire different government? I think that's where most of our conversation was lost with some of the other filler things about us, separating. So that's the one thing that I have really noticed in the comment section. And then I will watch this back and I will make some more videos to clarify the subject and also kind of elaborate on it. But thank you so much for having me on. It was honestly truly a pleasure, and hope to see you again. And thank you everyone who came in to listen to this. And I am going to be excited to see the rest of the show, but unfortunately I have to sign off. So thank you so much for having me.
well, thanks so much for finding some time. We'll let you off the hook this time, and we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts on this. So thank you again, Tiana, so much. It's always a pleasure. You're one of the fan favorites out here. Everybody was super excited when I mentioned on Monday that you were going to be joining us, and then I was able to Shanghai Doug for this as well. So there was nobody had any expectations, but I'm very grateful that we did it. So I think we've been able to give people a lot to chew on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Tiana, if you'd like, and you're doing a show and you'd like me to come on for a few minutes or a few hours or whatever it is, don't hesitate to reach out and further questions with further answers.
Will do for sure. Thank you so much. And I'll definitely go through your website in much more detail than I have in the last few days.
You didn't get much of a runway for this, so you're off the hook. But interesting comment. I was actually defending you the other day, Tiana. Somebody was upset at your rant and accusing you of being a broken down housewife with nothing better to do than troll the internet. And I said, oh, little do you know, she has 2 degrees and is a professional researcher with no kids and nothing but time and experience. So for the folks that out there wants to question that, you got some brilliant minds here. So by all means, thank you, Tiana, and we'll see you again real soon.
Thank you so much. And thank you for defending me. I truly appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for joining in. I hope you guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
All right. That's been a drink from the fire hose. So I think that we've got a little bit of time here to kind of go through some of the nuts and bolts a little bit, Doug, and you're probably not going to be able to read it with your bad eyesight, but on the front page of your website, the myth is Canada, and yeah, guys, down below, it's been scrolling along the ticker there for quite some time. Bookmark it. Don't just go and surf it. I mean, bookmark it. It's going to take you a long time to get through the information that's on there. And I know that there's other people putting other links in the chat. I don't endorse any of those guys because there's flaws and holes in their arguments. There's a reason why I have Doug and the Myth is Canada and Tiana on here. Is Doug's never taken shortcuts with the research, and he's backed it all up. And this site is the only one that's literally got all of the receipts on it with all of the links. So let's start with Doug, the 11 most important questions you need to ask.
Yeah, I've got it up. I brought the website up now. I can read it because I hit magnify a little bit. So I'm not on StreamYards trying to read it there. I'm on my web browser. So question number 1, or you want to go through all 11 questions? We can do that real quick.
Hit the cannon shots, shall we say? That there's lots that we can chew on, but the strongest bullet points to get people armed and effective, I guess. And to me, the first one is a really big one, because I'm going to be tomorrow. I'm going to have constitutional attorney Michael Alexander defending Mark Trotsky on tomorrow to talk about this. I invited him for tonight, and it didn't work, but it's just kind of an oxymoron to me. I know that we don't have a constitution, yet we have an entire field labeled as constitutional attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And I once spoke to a constitutional attorney, a very famous one, and I said to him, you realize that Canada doesn't have a constitution, right? And he goes, yeah. And I said, so why do you do what you do? He said, well, I got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
That's literally it. So the first question people need to ask themselves, if we have Articles of Confederation, if we have a constitution, where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
I love it. We confederated in 1867. No, we didn't. Because there are no Articles of Confederation. And, well, we have a constitution. It's called the 1867 Constitution Act. The problem is it's called the British North American Act, and those were letters patent for the Governor General to be the dictator for Canada. Section 11 of that, you read that, it says the Governor General is the government of Canada with the advice of the Privy Council or alone. So that's not a constitution, for it constitutes nothing. It's letters patent for the corporation sole, known as the Dominion of Canada. But they would want you to believe all of this. By taking a crayon and scratching out BNA Act and writing in Constitution Act, they think that changed the entire document, but it doesn't. The other problem with that document, which is a dead document, why is it a dead document? Because the heirs and successors, Section 2, was removed from the document, meaning that Queen Victoria is the only monarch for that document. And she died in 1901, so it is dead. That's why they archived it in the UK and don't use it. But in Canada, they gave Canada, and I've asked a politician this one too. Can you point to another country, just one more country, that has a photocopy for their constitution? No. Because Canada's the only one. It is a photocopy of a dead document. The other one I ask, this is a funny one too, because the 1982 Act has what they call a notwithstanding clause. And people go, well, what's a notwithstanding clause, Doug? Well, it gives the government the right to suspend the Constitution whenever it's too difficult on them. And so the document that creates them, they can suspend and get rid of for a time and do whatever they damn well please. So what group of people other than Canada in the world put that into their constitution? And the answer to that one is no one, just Canada. So the silliness, I'm sorry, that we the people buy here in Canada, it's heart-wrenching to see that people actually want to believe in the lie and will go to all kinds of different ways to convince themselves.
And this is why Trudeau
it's a-
keeps appointing governor generals and keeping them locked up in ivory towers, drunken and gifted, so that they will, hold the seat down, so that he can do his bidding. Because the only real rulership with authority is basically whoever that might be on the appointment of, the king, basically, right? So we don't just have a tyranny; we've got a non-functioning tyranny.
Well, and right now we're seeing it's going to get worse before it gets better. And why? People say, well, why, Doug? Why is it going to get worse? Because the whole system, their system, is collapsing. And I mentioned this date. This is a very important date. This is a super important date, ladies and gentlemen. December the 12th. December the 12th. Okay. 2019. People go, 2019, December the 12th. What the hell is that all about? Well, that's the day that we crossed the Rubicon into the derivatives problem. What's the derivatives problem? The derivatives problem back in 2008, when they kicked Lehman off the cliff and the mortgage-backed securities started to blow up, and the derivatives were 1.8 quadrillion back then. And you would think that in all these years that those derivatives would have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, except on December the 12th, 2019, the derivatives were somewhere estimated to be between 5 and 8 quadrillion. They have no idea how much really, but that's what the estimate was. And they started printing the money and putting it into that big black hole. And by March the 1st, 2020, they needed cover because they found that putting $2 and $3 and $5 trillion just wasn't enough. So they needed cover. So by the first week of March, Event 201 went live. Everybody knows what Event 201 is? Yes. The COVID pandemic. Why? Because they needed to pump $30 trillion a month into that black hole. And they've been pumping $30 trillion a month into that black hole since March the 1st, 2020, including they're going to put another 30 trillion in September the 1st, 2024. So they're holding on by the skin of their teeth right now, and everything is going away. And that damn multipolar world will not cooperate with them. Now, Mr. Putin, that dirty little bugger, will not start World War III, no matter what they've tried to do. And that silly bugger down in China, Xi Jinping, won't start World War III. How dare he not help the United States hide their collapse? How dare these people go against the hegemony of the United States? We rule the world. How dare they don't start World War III? And Iran is not starting World War III. What the heck is going on? And the neocons are pulling their hair out because, in all likelihood, the US dollar after this election coming is going the way of the dodo bird, which means that the Canadian dollar is also gone, which means that the Canadian government is gone, which means that then we now have to seat de jure government. Otherwise, chaos will ensue, and they will bring in their solution, which are guns and slavery.
And that slavery, you get accepted to be a slave if you accept the CBDC and the digital ID and all of those things. All of those things. They're not going to just they still need slaves with some skill to, especially up here in Canada. The replacement population does not have the skill to replace all of the things that. Yeah, they're fair weather replacements in that regard. But this is been my worst nightmare watching this happening, because this is literally wash, rinse, repeat of World War II. They needed another war. They had a depression, the collapse. They needed a war. They got it. And Canadians did not do what needed to be done. We have to remember that. Why did the Queen sign that document on in December of 1931? Right, the British Empire was collapsing. Then they couldn't bear the burden of cost to carry on with the colonies, so they made these pseudo documents and said, "Here, you guys can kind of experiment with some supervised self governance." I guess the how I
What,
see it. But
what's
they did the
really
same thing to
interesting,
Napoleon. It's the same damn thing they did to Napoleon. I was just studying that this morning. It was the same people doing the same thing, leveraging Napoleon and the rest of Europe to do the same thing. And then when they decided that they were going to bet on the English, they started taking Napoleon's war funding away from him until he got his ass handed to him at Waterloo. It's just
what's
repeat every 50, 70, 80 years.
what's funny about
Right.
the Statute of Westminster and the clauses that were written that dealt with the Dominion of Canada were actually came from the Native Sons of Canada minutes that Russell Roger Smith gave to William Lyon Mackenzie King, and William Lyon Mackenzie King gave those minutes to Lord Balfour, who incorporated them into the Balfour Declaration in 1926. That was then incorporated into the minutes of the 1930 Secret Conference and given to the parliamentary secretary to create the Statute of Westminster. So all three clauses that applied to Canada came from Russell Roger Smith's meeting with the Native Sons of Canada in Vancouver, British Columbia, back in September of 1926. So I've said this before. I said Russell Roger Smith is probably the number one hero of all people living here in Canada. And he is so hated by the de facto government that when he passed away in 1968, they put him in a pauper's grave with a number as a place of where his final resting place is. How disgusting is that this man gave us our freedom and we treat him in death with nothing more than a pauper's grave and a number.
So let's take a minute here and debunk some of the classic dismissals when you bring up this conversation. People will say, "Oh, we have our Charter of Rights and Freedoms," or we go, "What are the biggest signs of, for lack of a better word, ignorance when it comes to this discussion that people object to when they're trying to defend their slave masters?" That's the part that I don't get. Is they're literally defending their slave masters and say, "Oh, this new master over here, he'll whip us less. He'll whip us less. He won't whip us as hard." Like,
Oh God, it won't work us as hard. The number one thing, and even to politicians, I've done this with, is I ask, okay, so the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, okay, the 1982 Constitution Act, okay, I said, where's the second proclamation? The first proclamation that the Queen signed off on said, Section 58, subject to Section 59. You have another proclamation will be written under the Great Seal of Canada and will allow this to come into color. Well, I call it color of law, but law here in Canada. So if you go to the Constitution Act, and you can download it off the website once again, and we've got it up there. Go to Section 58, takes you to Section 59, which takes you to the little section called 23(1)(a). The 23(1)(a) needed to be repealed. Upon repealing 23(1)(a), Canada would no longer be bilingual. Okay, so can you please guess in the audience as to who didn't sign off on it? And if you said René Lévesque in Quebec, you get 100 points. Absolutely. He said no. Guess what? When Trudeau was in Quebec in 2022, January of 2022, and he referred to the Constitution Act not applying to the federal government because of the Quebec problem, that's exactly what he was talking about. And that is not a constitution, for actually it doesn't even constitute anything, but it is a charter. The charter created a ship at sea called the Government of Canada, and the birth of that ship, BERTH, is Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, which is why PEI is the only province recognized by the federal government. All the rest of the provinces are not, because they became subcorporations of the parent corporation between 1982 and 1985. Don't believe me? Go into Dun and Bradstreet and start doing some homework.
And so the key point there that I want people to get out of that was that Second Amendment that was never ratified, was literally knowingly installed as the poison pill, knowing, because Levesque was never, they've been fighting over that since the 1600s over their language. So it was an intentional poison pill in perpetuity to keep us in a delusional stasis that has allowed them to literally pillage under this pseudo maritime law corporate jurisdictions. And then in 1991, I think it was, they gave themselves permanent indemnity against prosecution in that, with the Little Child versus the People case, correct?
Yes. Well, actually, Willie Littlechild, you want to hear the story? Of course. Willie Littlechild comes from, I believe, Alberta, and his whole deal was that if you vote for me, I will vote against the GST. He was a PC candidate, and he said he would vote against the GST, even though Mr. Mulroney was the one that was putting it through. So he won 80%. 80% of his people voted for him. How cool is that? He goes to Ottawa, he votes for the GST.
Kind of like a Jason Kenney moment, right?
Yeah, they filed a lawsuit on him. And the judge in Chambers, this never went to trial, said we don't even need to go to trial. In Chambers said that a politician, you can elect a politician, and he can change his mind when he gets to Ottawa. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And the remedy that you have is to then wait till the next election cycle in 4 years and vote for the next guy that lies to you to get elected. And that's the Little Child case. That's one more thing. That's called, what's it called? Go ahead. Taxation without representation.
Right. Another crime spree. and that's yeah. Even CSIS has come out and stated that every successive prime minister of Canada going back to 1982 has been compromised. And we still want to play the game. We don't want to cash the check that's gotten so much dust on it, people can't read it or understand it anymore. That's the only way I can describe it. And so this is, my plea to the people is to, don't dismiss this, because you're going to get to a point where you're going to get blindsided and you're going to think back and go, oh, maybe they were on to something, right? Because there's been people onto this for a very long time. Who was it that said, how do you get a divorce if you've never been married? Another great analogy of exactly what this relationship and I go back to the battered wife syndrome, that there's 30 some odd million Canadians walking around with battered wife syndrome, and we've never been bloody well married.
Well, and by the way, that was Walter Cool from Edson, Alberta. He was a good friend of Russell Rogers Smith, and he was a backbencher in the 1930s and early 1940s. And he was the one that sent René Lévesque the letter in 1976 because they had just won a landslide victory in Quebec about, woo, wee-hoo, we're going to have a referendum to leave Canada. And Lévesque said, or I'm sorry, but Walter Coole said in his letter, you can't have a divorce without first having a marriage. Canada has never confederated, and we do not have a constitution. You're free to leave anytime you want.
And this is what makes, to me, in my mind, every one of those parasites in Ottawa, all 338, they all know this. They all know this. They don't actually have representation. They are just actors playing different roles. So we're getting along on this, Doug. So I want to get to one more portion of your website here, and I still see
Sure.
people in the chat looking for, where do I find Doug? Where do I find Doug? The Myth is Canada has been scrolling across the bottom of the screen for the last hour or so. Get plugged in there. So and I want to make 2 points here of this. On the first page, if you only can handle one question, ask them, will you support constitutional conventions to see to de jure Canada? Write that down. And from there, go to page 1, front page of this website. And there's 11 other questions that will really make you go, really? Why did we not see this? It's because our attention has been we've been beaten to death on that. But then I want to get to the page where it literally says the solution. Click that button. And where does that take us, Doug?
Solution? It takes us to a nice little part 1, how to create a de jure government via constitutional convention. And it's all there. It's all spelled out.
So when people want to start, what do they need to be thinking of? What should they be thinking about implementing this? How do they bring this to their communities? Because for the most part, if somebody comes out of this show tomorrow morning and they've had 2 cups of coffee and they're jacked and raring to go, people are going to look at them like they've got 3 heads.
Yes. Well, where do you start? You start by understanding, and this is why I teach what I teach. Okay, so I travel and I teach, I do seminars, and I want to give people enough information to inspire them to continue to research, to continue to learn and have knowledge. The next, where it says constitutional committees, if you click on constitutional committees on there, and I want you to scroll down. First reads, constitutional committees. This is the book I wrote. It's 25 pages. It's an easy read. It basically, in 25 pages, gives you the solution part 1. I break it down even further in there. But here's the other thing. This is, if you're going to write a constitution, you've got to understand the difference between privileges and rights. What are positive rights? What are negative rights? And then now you can download these. There's the English Bill of Rights, the United States Bill of Rights. These are examples, forms of government. You've got to understand, what kind of government do you want? These
Right.
are all research and study that needs to be done. And then I put up other constitutions so that you can actually see different constitutions that are out there. And then jurisdiction of law. Oh my goodness almighty. That is probably one of the most important things that you need to understand is jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction. Where are my feet before I start my journey? Am I in maritime? Am I in common law? Am I in admiralty? Am I in civil? Am I in Napoleonic code, etc., Sharia, whatever, Noahide, whatever. Okay, I can go on and on and on. But this will break down for you to start learning. And then what is money? That's the other thing. If you're 3 elements of sovereignty, 3 elements of sovereignty. Land under your feet, number 1. The ability to create money, number 2. And number 3 is the ability to raise a military. So If you read the U.S. Constitution, land under their feet, 10 square miles, called Washington, D.C. Done. Sovereignty. Section, can never remember this section, where they actually give how many grains of gold and how many grains of silver are there that create their money for them. And of course, the militias, the state militias,
Right.
because the federal government was never allowed to create a military. They were always scared of that one, so they didn't give them that. But they took that anyways when they did the Civil War, and that's how they got the MIC, which is the military-industrial complex that they have today. But this is great reading, because at some point leaders are created through trauma, through chaos. Leaders, people, the cream floats to the top, and but you only become a leader if you have the knowledge that the leader needs to lead. And these things are why we have these on the website, is so that I give you enough knowledge that you become a leader when it becomes time to be a leader. Not everybody can lead, okay? But those that can, with the knowledge base necessary, will float to the surface and take people away from the chaos and the fear of all of that, which is why I've spent the last several years traveling back and forth across Canada teaching these seminars.
Well,
Okay.
they've had some effect, and this was again part of the impetus of me putting this together tonight, bringing you and Tayana together, is seeing other people starting to address this, from Yukon and Alberta to Quebec. There are people that are getting educated on this. And the only way that we're going to be able to look after ourselves is, I mean, even myself, I can spend 20 hours a day researching, and still come up with absolutely useless, zero useful information. But this is where, through the processing and the action, in getting, not just getting educated, but I've had to, I mentioned this the other day when I had Glorraine Blaze, trailblazer as well, taking this, exposing this in the French Supreme Court, before they got all twisted up with their own intestines this week. But we used to think, or I used to think, that knowledge was power, but then I realized that knowledge without action is only going to leave you a knowledgeable corpse. But now we're at the point here where we need knowledge and action and a little bit of bravery and a little bit of courage. And there is absolutely nothing stopping Canadians from ending the corruption, establishing accountability, making Canadians debt free, and having the ability to self-determination as a nation. Because right now, well, that's been basically captured by Geneva and Davos.
Can I address one thing
Sure.
quickly? There was a comment in here that asked, is Brian Peckford evil?
No.
And my comment is that no, he is not evil. He is in his 90s. I had him on a round table. We did a beautiful round table, and people said, "Well, Doug, why didn't you attack him on the round table and tell him blah blah blah?" I said, "Look, he's living history. I wanted him to tell his story from his perspective, for the people that could watch this, because how often do you get living history come into your life? Not very. And you can go watch the video. It's up on the Myth is Canada YouTube channel, and it's well worth taking the time. I believe it's only about an hour long, but there it is. And no, I do not believe the man is evil. I believe the man did what he thought was correct at the time, because he thought he represented the people of Newfoundland and that he was going to help make change for those people. And I believe he will take that to his grave, that he did nothing wrong. And I honestly don't believe he did anything wrong. I believe that what he believed he was doing was for the people of Newfoundland. And so I would not call him a villain at all.
I,
But
I'd actually like to address that one a little bit. I actually produced that interview and
yes, you
show
did.
with Brian Peckford on there, and this is why I didn't want to get into the personalities of all of this, because I don't. I think the people of ill intent are the extreme minority going into the system. I think people genuinely seek to make change through the political measure, which is all that they know. So I don't begrudge them, some of them in the roles that they play over a period of time. Though they absolutely will expose themselves to either whether they are just there to get a pension, or just there because they're naive, or are they genuinely captured and infiltrated? So I think that is becoming more and more clear, and I think that we lose our credibility in our argument if we allow the discussion to move to the persons when the problem is the system that transforms. And look, guys, it's human nature. It doesn't matter who you are, you become what you're surrounded by. And people, if you're hanging out with nothing but football players, you're probably not going to be a hockey star, right? Like, I mean, that's just the kind of the nature of the thing. And we've gotten lulled into this situation where that is that is all that we know, and that's been the great crime committed against Canadians, is not understanding the opportunity that we have. And our opportunity is never going to come with cookie cutter politicians that are there to serve the system and not we the people. And very quickly, when they go in with the best of intentions, and very quickly they find out that they're not allowed to actually represent the people. They'll get slapped into a place real quick, or they'll just get kicked out of the party and dismissed. And that's ultimately what happens a lot of the times, like Jody Wilson-Raybould. Look what happened when she woke up. Jane Philpott, she woke up. What happens? Boot, done. And once these politicians are no longer the useful idiots, then they are removed from said positions. So we're getting into the last few minutes of this here, Doug. I pumped your website. It's on the screen below. You're available on Twitter as well under The Myth is Canada.
Yeah.
The last couple of minutes here, what is the last thing that you want us to tell the audience that's out there? And if you're American watching this, I hope you understand our struggle, and have empathy with us, and maybe give us a little bit of support and help in this too, because ultimately we've only come to this point because of people like Diana and myself and Doug that have been trying to cover America's six. We've been trying to cover your ass, and we don't want America to come and save us. But if they can help us out with keeping some of the heat off and understanding that some of their bad guys are responsible for this as well, and not leaving us out of the conversation, I think that would go a long ways. Because at the end of the day, what Americans need to realize, as well as Canadians, if we lose, we all end up in the same carbon trash heap, disposed of.
I just want to one more guy out. His name is Steve's with an S 11, and he put up a number 338. And people will ask, well, what the heck is that number about? Well, Steve's 11, number 338 is Bill number 338, or the Income Tax Act from 1948. So those people that see that, now they know what it is. Just for shits and giggles. There you go. Anyway, and by the way, it was done illegally. Closing out tonight. Look, I'm going to be heading back to Alberta in a few weeks, and anybody in Alberta who would like me to come to their community and do a seminar, please don't hesitate to contact me through themythiscanada@yahoo.com, and maybe we can arrange something. Likewise, anybody here from Ontario, like I say, I'm going to be here for the next probably 4 or 5 weeks. If you'd like me to come to your community and do a seminar, I'd be delighted, provided it's within driving distance and I don't have to drive to Thunder Bay and back in a day. I'll be quite happy to do it for you. I've done a lot of seminars in Ontario since I've been here for the last couple of months, and I don't mind doing that if it helps create what's needed for people to get this information and give them a starting point. I'm delighted to do that. I come in on Zoom for some of the further away locations, or I can drive if you're close enough to in the lower part of the southeast and west of Ontario. So yeah, and it's important that you start learning. Don't take my word for anything. Don't take anybody's word for anything.
Well, and that's what I love about your website so much, is that you've provided access to all of the documents. Everything that we've talked about and referenced here is on that website, and this is, at this point in time, if there's one thing that's critical for Canadians to understand, whether they want to take part or not, they're going to be left with the consequences of not knowing if somebody like Quebec, which has been working on this for a very long time. They've got their ducks in a row. There's some people in there, and they could do it in 30 days too if they chose to. I just hate the idea of seeing Canada destroyed because of a lack of knowledge and ignorance, not intentional, but as a result of 90 years of crime being perpetrated by these people, willing or willful or not. This is critical. We've got about 1,200 people almost watching live here on X. You can find Doug on X as well. He's got a real small account over there. It is The Myth is Canada as well. I encourage you guys to go over there and get plugged in. You can reach him on there as well. But the website is The Myth is Canada, because it is just a myth. So I hope that kind of makes sense for people out there when Trudeau was talking about some of those things, like making Canada the first post-nation state, or that Canada had no core identity. He was speaking from exactly the knowledge that we've gone over here today. And it's time to really start asking some of the real questions and the hard questions. And again, not to make political enemies, but to try to educate and create loving Canadians working together towards something that isn't just suicide, because that nobody's going to take us anywhere off of that path in the current system. So that's my message to Canadians. I hope I know that there'll be a lot of discussion on X and in multiple spaces. This was shared out by some very excellent Spaces hosts, so I want to thank them for that, and I'm sure I'll get a chance to speak to others in there. But get plugged in, Canada. It is such an amazing opportunity. I mean, do you want your grandkids living with these criminals, the debt of these criminals, or do you want to start Canada with a clean slate for future generations with the right to self-determination? Because everything that they are doing has none of that in mind. They do not represent the people, and they've given themselves permission to not represent the people. So that's the opportunity, Canada. I hope we get plugged in.
Okay, so I've had a couple of requests for the email. Again, is themythiscanada at yahoo.com. That's .com, not .ca. Yahoo.com.
And that's why I tell them to go to plug in there. That's the easiest place to find you. Reach out to Doug on the social media platform, and he'll be able to get you the email and whatever else you need. Just do it. All right. Well, thanks so much, Doug, for jumping on this.
Thank you for having me.
Such short notice, and the volumes of wisdom and knowledge and fact checking. And yeah, much. We'll look forward to seeing what comes next. So, all right.
Yes.
Take care, my friend.
Take care. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye for now. All right, guys. Have you had enough? Did y'all get a drink from the fire hose? I know that's probably going to be shattering from some people, but at the end of the day, if we don't start having some, operating from, what is the term the judges use, for self-evident truths. They're not so self-evident. They've gone to great lengths to hide these truths from Canadians, and the truth can never be buried forever. Sooner or later, it will come out, and I'm hoping that today is one of those days that seeds a grass fire of truth, and gives the 69% of political orphans out there something to actually believe in and come together on, because at the end of the day, that is the only reason this platform exists. So thank you guys all for tuning in here tonight. I don't know the last time I ever turned off a platform with 1,200 viewers live on it. I hope you guys come back again. Please give us a subscription, and I hope you guys give it a retweet and a share. As I said earlier, everything comes out the next morning in a Substack. All of the documents, anything that I use in a show. We do this show Monday to Friday at 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern. Tomorrow night we've got Michael Alexander, constitutional lawyer, on. Friday we've got the financial whisperer, who is going to have a lot to contribute to this as well. This is crowdsourced, crowd-funded. There's an opportunity to buy me a coffee if you find value in this work that we do. You can find links to that on the Substack as well. If you are a whistleblower, if you've got something important to share, a story that needs to get out, some more information to add to whatever it is that we may have been talking about, contact at What's Up Canada is the best way to reach out and connect with me there. And last but not least, guys, it is the people that are doing things like this, the independent, authentic media, that is your best friend and ally in the greatest war in human history, and that is right now, right here, right now. So if you have independent journalists that are fighting and taking the licks for you, I encourage you guys to support them wherever they are, whoever they might be, and start bringing up some of these conversations to them as well. If this platform is one that you trust in and would like to help keep going and stay in the fight and provide free content for everybody, my content will never, ever be behind a paywall. It is always free. So I depend on your generosity, which means that I work extra hard to bring the best content available that I can get. And yeah, it's the future that we do this for. So on that note, I love y'all. Stay mighty, stay strong, my fellow patriots and prisoners at this point. And let me remind you that we owe no allegiance to our captors, and our nation has been infiltrated and captured. They have pulled a soft coup on our government through unelected entities, and you owe no allegiance to your captors. So stay mighty, my friends, and we'll see you again tomorrow with another powerful discussion on exposing some more of the crime syndicate within the colleges of physicians and surgeons, and why this precedent-setting case is important for Canadians to know about. So check out my partners on the way out. They are Patriot Switch, my favorite supply chain replacement. Why? Simply because the creator in this company was once labeled by Barack Obama as the 8th most dangerous conservative corporation in America. Why? Because we would not submit to globalism and the cabal. So I am 100% indebted to this company for being proud partners and supporters and suppliers of the things that keep me away from the BlackRock funding stores and all of that nonsense and crime spree. We'll get onto that another day. So check these guys out. You'll find links to them on the What's Up Canada website. Find that in any of the platforms show notes as well. So I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow.